Happy Patty's Day to you. I got my green. I'm in the ball game here. You know, I am a full thoroughbred Irishman. For those of you who think I'm not, the E makes it Irish. It's those without the E that are the English. We don't have to get into an ethnic battle here. I'm just telling you. But I can't do the Monday St. Patty's Day. Can't do it. It's just too hard, especially after a couple of Killians on Saturday night. Who drinks that stuff? It's very tasty, but ooh. All right. Anyway, welcome to my state of mind. I am Dan Yorke. We have an interesting guest today who'll have some thoughts on all this. I'm going to create jobs. I'm going to create jobs from the at least Democratic gubernatorial candidates. A little perspective on that in our guest segment. In the meantime, let us go to the rundown. Oh, come on, man. That's statistically impossible. And now it's this? Really? I thought we were talking about planes landing in Pakistan. This is turning into a potential political situation that I'm going to clarify for you. And I've got a question about the whole gay pride thing. And congratulations to the Friars. They are in. Let's go and break some of these things down. Steve, number one, let's throw it up there. 93%? Yeah, right. Please. The headline out of the Ukraine or the BBC, whatever, Crimea exit poll, about 93% back the Russian Union. Well, exit poll, whatever poll, I don't know when the official count is finally made, but anybody who's been paying attention to this, do you think it's a crisis? I think most people think it's at least more than a controversy. This election in Crimea, 93%. Will you get off me on that one? There's no. First of all, that's statistically impossible. You can't get 9.3 people out of 10 to agree on anything. So you have to know, with an election that was posted 2 weeks in advance, that had more people voting than were actually registered, as if they've got voter ID there, and a propaganda campaign and a soldier campaign with fear being a major motivator in this particular election, that's a legitimate vote. Now, nobody seems to agree that it is legitimate, but we're all being very touchy about the diplomacy. The president talked about Ukraine in a special statement today.
I have signed a new executive order that expands the scope of our sanctions. As an initial step, I'm authorizing sanctions on Russian officials, entities operating in the arms sector in Russia, and individuals who provide material support to senior officials of the Russian government. But throughout this process, we're going to stand firm in our unwavering support for Ukraine. As I told Prime Minister Yatsenyuk last week, the United States stands with the people of Ukraine and their right to determine their own destiny.
So this is heartbreak for the people of Ukraine. If you remember the Brown professor that I had from Ukraine last week, she was on the radio with me earlier today, and she was talking about how these folks are heartbroken. Ukrainians all across the country are heartbroken that Russia has more or less betrayed them. That's the general sentiment all the way through the country. It's kind of like a divorce situation here, and so the emotions are running very high. Ukraine's saying now, we're not going to give up Crimea without a battle. And the United States, while we're jacking up those sanctions, as the president indicated, has no interest. We have no interest in a war, a bloody war with Russia. The European Union doesn't either. And of course, we've got all sorts of complications with, energy, gas, the economy of that. This is going to be something that will resolve over a lengthy period of time. But in the end, I think you got to figure out that Putin's going to have a piece of Crimea one way or the other. I don't know where it goes. We'll check in daily on this and pay attention to it because it's really important. Let's go to the next item. Really? Now it's this? I thought we were headed. I thought the best, greatest theory was that perhaps the plane was hijacked, pirated, if you will. The latest headline is that they're forced to consider the possibility of pilot suicide. Now, is that connected to a terrorist thought process or whatever? I'm not exactly sure. Here's the latest from our Fox News, a little audio that brings us up to date, sort of.
H370 remains a mystery more than a week after the Boeing 777 vanished. Investigators now focusing on the plane's pilots, and the last words from the cockpit heard by ground controllers, quote, "All right, good night."
Initial investigation indicated it was the co-pilot who basically spoke the last time.
The lack of wreckage, powering down of equipment and evidence the plane was deliberately flown off course for hours, leading many to fear the disappearance is an act of terror.
All right, and so I don't know what all right, good night means. It sounds like a children's book. All right, good night. Seems like a very benign statement, so I don't know what you can generate from that intelligence-wise, right? The United States is trying to offer intelligence, and Malaysia is saying, you know what, we've had enough help from you, thank you very much. So I wouldn't hold your breath on a solution for this. I can promise you this, though. We'll be looking for that plane, the remnants of, or the story about it for years to come. It's important to wrap it up. This cannot be an open case. Next item. Back here at home. All right, this is the story of Carl Waddenston, the Vibeco president, who came to us a couple of weeks ago after I was banging on the radio, weekdays noon to 3 on WPRO, about the pothole environment around here, and Mayor Taveras from Providence saying, yeah, it's like the worst pothole season we've ever had, and I don't blame him for that, but he's been pretty lax in responding to this new idea. Anyway, Carl's got these vibrating machines, right? As part of his company, his Vibeco company makes them, and they're all over the market and have been for years, but he wants to donate them to the citizens of Rhode Island via their governments and DPWs. And he told us a week or so ago here on the show what his motive was.
Number one, you know that I've always thought of our state, and people say you have to nurture your state. Well, we make a piece of equipment that will change every citizen's life here. And if I can give it to our state and have raving fans with our DOT municipality workers, don't you think that resonates to the bigger markets? That we can sell more machines and we're taking care of our own state? Why do you really need to monopolize and make money on your own state?
Right. So it's gone fairly well. There's been more than a dozen communities that have taken the machine, including Cranston. We showed you the picture a couple of times last week of Mayor Alan Fung donning the yellow jacket and running the machine, which extends the life of a pothole fix by 4 or 5 times because it compacts the cold patch. It's better than the old, throw and go type of thing. And it's proven reportedly to be a terrific tool. Well, this weekend I'm reading the newspaper, and Ed Fitzpatrick from the Providence Journal, through this headline here, writes that Carl Waddenston is 4 weeks away from deciding whether he's going to run for governor. Now, look, I've known Carl for a long time, and I know he's wondered about that, but he's never on the record talked about running for governor. And I just wanted to say to you, between the radio and the television here, as I've advocated real hard for people, for the towns to take this equipment, that this has not been some kind of manipulation campaign of the public in order some kind of campaign benefit for Carl Waddenston. If Carl wants to run for governor, he's got every right in the world to do that. I think you can still multitask. You can do good things for the state, and you can run for office. There's nothing wrong with that either. But you got to be intellectually honest. If you're contemplating running for office and you're very public with this, this gift campaign of GR 1600 machines, then you ought to say it. So I'm a little, I wouldn't say discouraged, but bothered by this news, and I've invited Carl in tomorrow to come talk to us about it, and he's taken up my invitation. So he'll be here tomorrow as my guest on the program. Be here, 7:30 and 11:30 repeat. All right, next item. Real quick on this, the headlines about the St. Paddy's Day parades seemingly are the same every year. Now you get sponsors who are feeling the wave of sentiment for gay people, starting to pull out sponsorships of parades, St. Paddy's Day, and I think Sam Adams got in a tussle with the Boston parade. There's nothing, all these parades are wonderful celebrations, right? I don't like the way they're all reported to have nothing but drunks. I mean, you'd think the Irish are just a bunch of drunks. But that's a whole other conversation. The Gay Officers League, this, that, look, at some juncture, it seems to me, with the growth of gay marriage, same-sex marriage, and an equity effort here, that we won't have to identify gay veterans or gay this or gay that in a parade. I think, am I mistaken to suggest that this was supposed to be about equal footing, and that orientation, while different, is the same? And so I don't understand the marketing of the gay pride thing, I got it back years ago when they were struggling to get some respect. Now people who just happen to be gay are on equal footing in too many places to make a big deal about identifying themselves in a parade. Right? If there's anybody out there that wants to talk about that with me from an official organization, you know, a gay lesbian organization, feel free. We'll put the number up. It's 228-1886. We put that up at the end of the show. Anyway, contact us because I want to talk to you about it. I think it's a conversation we need to have. What else do I have here tonight? Finally, yes, sirree. They are in. Amen. We've got an NCAA berth for a local basketball team here. The Friars, there's some pictures from the Providence Journal winning against Creighton. Turns out they get an 11 seed. And so if they did not win, it seems that if they did not win that conference championship tournament against Creighton on Saturday night, they would not have been in the tournament. Who knew? Here they are at Alumni getting ready for the big selection show on CBS and all that kind of stuff. Great stuff. Great stuff. Let's say congratulations to the Friars. Know that the Big East is a lighter Big East than it used to be, but it doesn't take away a championship. Interesting, though, the Big East gets 4 teams in. The Atlantic 10 got 6 teams in. That's the league that URI plays in. So give URI in that 2-year program under Dan Hurley a little bit of a break. They've got a long hill to climb, and my guess is they'll climb it pretty quickly. But good stuff. North Carolina. We'll do a bracket show on Wednesday and break the whole thing down. North Carolina on Friday night for PC. Go get them, Friars. All right, we come back. Let's talk about these ideas that the candidates have for creating jobs. We'll be right back.
This program is going to be another tool in the toolbox that can be used to attract new employers to the state, and it will make it easier for existing businesses to expand and hire new employees here.
Oops, the second part was Gina Raimondo. We kind of missed that. We had a little jump cut there, as we say in the business. But rest assured, those were the 2 candidates who lead the Democratic primary polls, who are having their own competing ideas as to how to bring jobs in. Gina Raimondo talking about the Innovation Institute. Here's the headline, a lot of attention. Tavares has a plan, Raimondo has a plan. And you know, through all of this, I was thinking, have they actually checked in to see who already has a plan? I mean, what plan is actually working? Come on back, Yos, and we'll talk to our guest, Steve Kitchen from New England Tech. We're having one of those technical challenge nights, it seems. Steve, you'll be on television very soon. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
There he is. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure to be here.
You know, I just want to point out to the candidates that it might be a good idea to check in with New England Tech, because this job training thing is something that you guys have been, well, nobody's perfect, but you've been trying to perfect and doing a pretty good job at for quite some time, yes?
The college has existed since 1940, where our main focus is on preparing our graduates for professional and technical careers in the labor market. That's all of what we're focused on. Mission and purpose is everything for institutions of higher learning, and that's ours.
All right, so look, there's always a battle of ideas in campaigns. They don't always make it to the finish line in election seasons and actually get executed when once elected. But I'm feeling a little disconnect between these 2 candidates and the reality on the ground. Are you?
I welcome the opportunity to speak about job training. I think it's critical. I think it's part of one of the things we need to do is close skill gaps in the marketplace. The reality is it's one of many things we should be doing about job creation in Rhode Island.
New England Tech has that formula working where you understand what's going on in the workplace, and your programs, the shorter programs, the associate programs, the bachelor's programs, the master's programs are designed not just in a vacuum, but also tailored to the marketplace needs, correct?
Correct. We have technical advisory committees for each of our academic programs at the college, the more than 40 that we have. And those advisory committees consist of employers who are constantly advising us about what curriculum changes, what shifts need to occur, what's occurring within their particular marketplace, all in order to keep our programs as current and relevant as possible.
So, you know you're the ultimate diplomat, but tell me really in your gut, New England Tech's gut, when you watch this conversation in political spaces about job training. Do you buy into what these candidates have done? Have they done their research? Have they connected in? Have they talked to you at all? I mean, is there any kind of synergy in the conversation?
I buy the idea that there are skill shortages. I mean, in manufacturing, in IT, in healthcare, there most certainly are. There's no doubt about it. However, I also buy into the idea that if we took a look at raw economic data, we would know that Rhode Island's economy isn't producing enough jobs. For example, if you took the 500,000 people who comprise of our labor market, subtract out of that the 51,000 who aren't working, and it's probably closer to 70,000 who aren't working, the reality is we could train everyone and not have enough jobs for them to fill. If we looked at the Department of Labor and Training's America's Job Bank numbers, there's about 12,000 jobs at any given time in that database. If you doubled that number and said it was 25,000, because we know that's not the only place that employers look for jobs, the reality is we're 50,000 jobs short.
Yeah, I get that. And so really this notion that we've got all these jobs that we just have to skill people up for, while true in part, is not the entire picture.
It is not the entire picture.
But I'm just trying to drive at the concept of whether or not these politicians are connected to what's really happening on the ground. It's almost like, hey, I could have had a V8. We ought to create a jobs training program. When in truth, despite the tough unemployment numbers, thank goodness places like New England Tech are doing their business, or it might be worse. Doesn't bother you guys that you've been kind of left out of the conversation while these candidates are chattering about votes?
I think it's one of the reasons that we believe we need to have a conversation with all of the institutions of higher learning in Rhode Island, both the public and private, about what roles they can play in alleviating the skills gap issues that Rhode Island does have.
And the politicians.
Absolutely.
All right, when we come back, you ought to know that, you know, if you're out of work, there is a road back. New England Tech can talk about that with you when we come back. Stay with us. You're looking at some of the promotional video that comes from New England Tech, which has got, you know, a beautiful campus, and there's all sorts of, how many different occupations are you training people for, Steve?
We have more than 35 associate, bachelor's, and master's degree programs.
And you can really track the success stories of people who've gotten degrees and have earned jobs.
Yes, we can.
So it's a tough, you know, little kabuki dance that you do in this economy as you're trying to match up training, education to jobs. I'm sure it's a fluid process, but you folks, I'm sure, are assessing market needs and in touch with corporate America, Southern New England, on a regular basis. And are you literally having managers say to you, owners of companies say to you, hey, listen, guys, we got a new product line that we're building here, and over the next 2, 3, 4 years, we're going to need this kind of machinist or this kind of tech, da-da-da-da-da. Find them for us.
Absolutely have that conversation almost daily, either through our career services office or through my office at the college. We regularly communicate with employers. It's so critical in terms of labor market information to have those direct conduits of information to us.
How much responsibility, or where does the responsibility break down between corporate, medium, small business size America, government, private or nonprofit institutions, to cure the economic woes of jobs? Who bears the real burden?
I think we all do, Dan. I think that ultimately, that between institutions of higher learning, government, businesses, we all have to be collaborative in nature. We all have to be talking with one another. And while that sounds trite, the reality is that information gathering and working together are two different things.
I don't think I'm going to draw you into a political conversation. I've had a radio and now TV conversation with Steve. He's pretty adept at staying away from that. But Ken Block said something a couple of weeks ago that I thought was brilliant when he said, look, I don't create jobs, and I'm not going to create jobs as a guy running for governor, other than the ones I hire in my own staff. What I would like to do is create an environment where jobs can thrive. I think these Democratic candidates who are going to try to one-up each other on job creation ought to take a deep breath and a step back and think about that, because it really is the relationships that folks like you will have with the private sector that, for all intents and purposes, are really where the meat is, right?
That's absolutely correct. It's where employers connect with us that we make labor market decisions about what programs we're going to offer. If you looked at the demographics of our institution in terms of program mix, you'd notice now that we're very heavily into the medical area, That was certainly when I joined the staff at New England Tech 27 years ago, that was not the case. Now it's nursing, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and surgical technology, as well as others, health information management. Those were things that New England Institute of Technology did not have on its horizon just a short 20 years ago.
And so a lot of kids are spending copious amounts of hundreds of thousands of dollars at colleges for physical and occupational therapy, for instance. Better deal at New England Tech?
Better deal in terms of, I think, in terms of our connectedness to the labor market. Absolutely.
And curriculum just as compatible or just as high level as you'll find at one of the bigger name schools?
We're accredited by the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. They're the gold standard, if you will, of accrediting bodies, and we're judged on that standard every 10 years.
Another good short answer to the last question. For someone who's been out of the workplace, maybe 50, 55, still a chance to get a good, quick retool at New England Tech and get a gig?
Absolutely. For example, our Shipbuilding Advanced Manufacturing Institute, which was funded by the U.S. Department of Labor, is preparing welders and machinists right now for jobs that are available in the marketplace.
All right, let's stay with the conversation because we need more jobs in the state. Good to see
We
you.
absolutely do.
Thank you, Steve. All right, your state of mind when we come back. Stay with us. Your state of mind. Here's how you get in touch with us. 228-1886 is the telephone number. State of mind at myritv.com is the email. And tweet and Facebook post at Dan Yorke Show with the E. Here's an interesting perspective from one of our viewers on Ernie Almonte's visit. He thinks the guy's pretty good. Got a plan, got the passion, got the attitude. He asks, are Rhode Islanders smart enough to give him the opportunity? Here's Ernie. He was on the show. You saw him the other night, right? You watch every single night, right? Make an appointment. Anyway, Ernie is a viable candidate for treasurer. So too is Frank Caprio. And the other, what's Seth Magaziner? That's going to be an interesting race. Under the radar, no doubt. All right. Have a great night. We'll see you at 7:30 tomorrow on My State of Mind. Good night.